It's interesting to watch a lot of these trials because you end up hearing all this gossip, like that Johnny Depp may have been sleeping with his lawyer, or to me, it looked like Karen Reed had a very cozy relationship with her lawyer. And I can imagine, and same thing with like Casey Anthony and Jose, you heard rumors about that. You really bond with these people because they're saving your life and they're the closest thing you have to a god, right? So I can see how that little romance would happen. Can you?
Absolutely. It's against most ethical guidelines in most states to do
Right.
that, to become involved with a client who you are representing. But I can also see, when you're that closely involved with someone and it's their life, it's similar for me when I do divorces, right? This is their whole life,
Right.
how a friendship develops, how this is the only person that knows some of your deepest, darkest secrets. So even if it doesn't, blossom into a romance, it blossoms into a very close and complicated relationship. And so the appearance to others, the hand on the waist or the arm around the shoulder or the whispering, this is someone who's, your life is in their hands. And so you're going to be closer to them than you would really even your best friend at the time.
Yeah, you're right. That's a good opinion there. All right, let's talk about the Menendez brothers' potential resentencing. What do you think about them? Do you think that they've been in jail long enough?
That's such a hard one. I don't know. I don't know. I think they had to go to jail for a very long time. I think
Hmm.
you don't get to kill your mom, especially. You don't get to go up and reload and come back, right?
Hmm.
When even no matter how bad things are, on the other hand, things sound like they were really bad. Um,
So, does anyone not believe the sexual assault thing with the dad? I don't know where we are with that because then, all these new documentaries come out and I just don't get it anymore. I've lost track of what we think the facts are.
yeah, so I think pretty much people are tending to believe that that happened now.
Okay.
When they were convicted, the main difference between the first trial and the second trial, where they were eventually convicted, was that the judge did not allow a lot of that stuff in.
Hmm.
And so that didn't play as big a role, I think, as people feel like it should have in the
Oh.
second trial where they were
Oh, I
convicted.
didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
So that was one of the big things that changed. The judge streamlined things much more and said, we're not going to get into all this extraneous stuff.
But
Um,
wouldn't that have created motive?
yes. So I think that there were some limited ability to make allegations, but some of the evidence, the collateral evidence, like the letters,
Right.
were not allowed in.
Got it. So at that point, it was almost like the jury had to either believe it was true or not,
Yeah.
and it without the evidence, obviously the jury didn't find it to be credible.
Right. And they weren't testifying, to all of this stuff. And so, you know, I I think probably what tips it for me is that they have been model citizens in prison.
Hmm.
These are guys that are never going to commit another crime in their lives. They're
Hmm.
not going to be repeat offenders. The family of the victims, which happen to be their family as well, believes they
Hmm.
should be out of jail.
Hmm.
If the family of the people you killed thinks it's time for you to leave jail, that's pretty compelling to me after this amount of time.
Right.
So I would tend to err on the side of, it's time that it's okay to let them go, but I would not be offended if they remained in jail. I would not think that was horrible.
So what would the process be for a potential resentencing? Does that mean they have to go to trial again and give all the evidence, or are these just briefs that their lawyers bring in?
Just briefs. It'll be the judge that ultimately resentences them. I think what's happening now is Los Angeles switched district attorneys with this past election. So
Hmm.
Los Angeles had Gascon, who was very on the very liberal side, I think, of punishment issues, who was
Mm.
the acting district attorney, who was the district attorney here for many years. And the public voted him out overwhelmingly. The public was not happy
Mm.
with him and voted in a much more conservative attorney, a really good attorney, but much more conservative to take over
Hmm.
the role. And so Gascon had said, I think it's time for them to come out of jail. He had kind of
Got
reviewed
it.
everything. He knew what he felt. And what the prosecutor thinks is a big component of resentencing.
Hmm.
Now, the new district attorney has said, we need more time. I need more time to review everything and make my own decision. And he kind
Got
of
it.
ran on I'm going to be tougher on crime than this liberal guy, platform. And that appealed to voters. I mean, he was voted in overwhelmingly. So I don't know if that means he will make a different conclusion, but I think he probably feels some pressure to say, I'm the tough on crime guy. I'm not going to just let murderers out of jail.
Right. That's a really good
We'll
point.
see.
Okay. Well, we will see. What's the latest? I didn't ask you this before, but can you talk about Scott Peterson? Did you ever follow that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean,
Who
that
didn't? That was so interesting.
that to me is even more so than Casey Anthony, even more than all these other cases, the most obvious example of course he did it, right? Other
But is it? They did a whole documentary where they kind of made you think, did he do it?
It didn't make me think that. I mean, I know that was the point. I know a lot of people came away thinking that, but
Right.
I just think this guy would have to be the unluckiest man in the history of unlucky men
Right.
to say to his mistress, my wife there's a different type of gone, and then it turns out somebody else abducted and murdered his wife. I mean, it's
Right.
like, how could that? I just think the coincidences are too huge.
Right.
I don't know how it's possible he didn't do it.
Yeah. I mean, that every bit of that story is like a made for TV movie. I mean, it's so ridiculous and fake, and the players in it. And I mean, it just was insane. And then remember all of a sudden when you see Amber Fry come out with Gloria Allred, and we're like, what?
Yeah.
Amazing. This is like just the popcorn. You got to get it and start watching. It was
Yeah.
fantastic.
It's like reality is better than fiction, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's the same thing on our show. Like our craziest cases, you couldn't write them,
Right.
because nobody would think of something that incredibly entertaining and amazing.
Right.
It's the same. I think if you scripted that case, people would say, oh, that's so far-fetched. That could never happen.
Right. Are there any other cases that you're watching that we might not know of because they're not, as big and out there that we should follow?
So I think to me, the best kind of true crime case out there in the last few years has been Lori Vallow Daybell.
I'm obsessed with that one.
Me too, obsessed. I watched every day of the live tweeting of what was happening in the courtroom because
Yeah.
they didn't televise that one. So I
Right.
watched up to date what was happening every day, listened to the audio
I
afterwards.
I listened to all of that. And by the way, can we just talk about this for a second? I wasn't going to bring this up because I didn't even think she's in jail. So I've figured, oh, it's over.
No,
But the fact that it had so many different parts to it, that her ex-husband was murdered, her brother, was it the brother that died on the toilet from something? I mean, then the guy she's now married to, his wife died 2 weeks before. And I felt like the local media at the beginning wasn't putting this together. And I'm like listening to the 911 calls, and I'm like, this woman is so guilty. What is going on? Where are these kids? And I remember when we were following the story when the kids were still missing. And it was just so terrible because you knew the kids were not alive. I mean,
yeah.
and then the fact that they found them was incredible. But the fact that they found him on her boyfriend's property or her husband's property, I mean, they just couldn't have been arrested quick enough. And the fact that the police kept going to Hawaii and being like, where are the kids? I was like, throw them in jail. This is crazy.
I still remember the video of Nate Eaton, the guy from the, reporter, the Idaho newspaper, who's now famous because of this case,
Right.
of him like walking after them in Hawaii, saying like, "Where are your children? Where are your children?" And they're just like walking, holding hands,
Yeah.
like kind of
Like they're on
swaying.
vacation.
I mean, that case, when I was watching, I think the Dateline, episodes about that case, my husband came in and after like 10 minutes said, what movie is that? Like, how have I not seen this? I said, this is not a movie. This is a documentary about, something that really happened. So
Right.
she's going to go to trial in Arizona now for the death of her third husband.
Right.
He's
Okay. The
going to
one that
trial
was
in Arizona.
shot.
Yes,
Okay.
by
The brother.
brother, right?
Yeah.
Who's now dead, who dropped dead out of nowhere.
On the toilet.
Was it on the toilet? Oh
On the
my
toilet.
yeah, right. And then Chad Daybell is going to trial. Her husband is going to trial.
Oh, I didn't realize they were all
Yeah,
going to trial. Okay,
in
this is
Idaho.
exciting.
And it's going to be televised. That's the big woo. They're going to
Televised where? On Court TV?
I have no idea. I think I think they said it's only going to be live streamed directly from the courthouse website. But then if they do that, anybody can put courthouse, Court TV can carry it. Anybody can carry it. It'll go on YouTube. And so all of these, it's going to be the same case that Lori's case was. It's going to be all the same witnesses, all the same evidence. So all this stuff that we got to hear about and kind of read about, we're going to get to see. And I'm taking a month off, 2 months, 3 months off work, and I'm going to be watching every day.